Hello, this is Samir Machwe and welcome to our episode number 9 of the new series Think Abundance. In this series, as you know, we discuss different books, different ideas, different thoughts, and anything that moves us forward in life, anything that increases our experience of life because we all love to grow. The basic design of nature is growth. So all of us want to grow, and in this series we discuss anything that will help us grow. Today we are going to discuss a very important topic, and that is about our own country. Recently I attended a seminar on the India growth story, and I thought I should be sharing whatever I learned into that seminar. So I have taken some notes here I have in front of me, and I am going to give you the thing from this notes today. Very interesting data. I was having the idea that yes, we are a growing economy and things are happening, but this particular seminar gave me a one step forward in this direction. So let us see why we must be investing in India, especially the equity markets, and what is going to happen in our country in the next decade. So as you know, there was a time when India was the one of the richest countries in the world. It was called Sone ki Chiriya. And why it was called? Because we were doing a lot of trade, and during that time there was no dollar or there was no rupee, there was only gold. So we used to do a lot of trade, a huge amount of trade, and we used to exchange gold. So India was collecting gold by giving out different products like spices, textiles, and so many things that were available and were a monopoly to India at that point of time. That may be around 200-300 years back. But that time, if you see, it is said that India contributed 24% to the world economy. That was huge, right? Now, again, the circle has been moved and it is now getting complete, and we are again on our journey to make a huge contribution to the world trade. That is what is the undercurrent right now, and there are certain reasons why we need to believe this story, right? So I'll give you some information that I got myself in this particular seminar that I attended last week. So first thing, post COVID, the things are coming down to normal. There was a kind of paralysis in the economy in the first wave. Everything stopped, the factory stopped, the transport stopped, everything stopped suddenly because this was one of its kind of a threat to the country as well as the whole human race as such. And so we reacted very sharply. Comparatively, in the second wave, we coped up well, and now we have coped up really well. Especially in India, we have completed, as I am told, more than 120 crores of vaccination. In such a huge country, nobody in the world was ever imagining that India would do this. And it was done in such a simple and logical way. If you remember, when the COVID started, we were asked to download that app COVID, right? And then we were supposed to do the vaccination. And it was all linked to the Aadhaar, which was created. And Aadhaar did all the miracle. In a big country like us, 136 crores of population, everything is traced by that Aadhaar. This amazing technology took the world by surprise. They never thought a country like India with such hodgepodge systems would be able to achieve such a big feat. And this is where we are. This is the power of India. And this is the power of technology adopted by Indians. So that is one reason to believe that yes, we are indeed moving towards better days. If you see in the recent past, last 4-5 years, the government spending has been increasing. The government has started capex, capital expenditure, and as a percentage of GDP, this figure is continuously rising over the last 4-5 years. So that is a very good sign for the economy. We had some jitters in the banking segment, the NBFC segment, and we had the worst, and I hope the worst is behind us. That is what the data tells. And the NPAs in the banking sector and in the NBFCs has been decreasing. with good speed, and the things are very much normalized now in the banking sector, and no more jitters are expected. One good thing that has happened is the retail loans are on the rise. That means the people like us, you and me, they are taking loans from the bank. There is a big proportion of the bank loans that is going to the retail market. Now, why this is important is because if a corporate takes a loan and if it defaults, that creates a big problem. But in retail, the defaults are less, plus the loan amount is small. So if there is a default, it is of a very, very small size. It is not huge. Normally, corporates takes the loans in thousands of crores, but retails, the loans is small. So chances of default are less. So that is a good sign. If retail loans increase, that is what is the trend in India currently. There are very, very strong capital inflows in the country. The foreign money is coming. It is coming in form of FII money, which is of course short-lived. The money directly invested in the stock market, they can remove it anytime. But the good thing is there is FDI, the foreign direct investment, which is basically invested in businesses, business partnerships, or 100% in some business, and that is going to help because that is long-term money. It stays there for few decades at least. So that is a good sign. The FDI is on the rise. All of us know that this COVID thing started from China, and there was a huge amount of UN cry over this thing coming out of China. And at a point when China had already become the largest supplier for the rest of the world for different goods and services. So suddenly, this particular pandemic put a question in front of the, especially the developing nations in the Europe and the America, that if something of this sort happens in with the biggest supplier, what next? So they started looking for alternatives. So there was a policy China plus one, which means that they need one more supplier. And you guessed it right, it was the choice of our country because we are well placed. We have technical manpower and we are able to supply. So India is looked at as an alternative source for supplying to the world. And this is the time when our country, our government launched Atmanirbhar Bharat, that is Make in India. So we had grown very well in the service sector, but our manufacturing sector was lagging. So this is what the government did. They arranged this and they arranged the PLI scheme, product linked incentive scheme, and they identified 13 sectors which were going to be invested in. There was a total outlay of 2 trillion rupees to be invested over a period of 5 years. 1 year is already over, started in 2020. So huge amount of money invested in these 13 sectors. And the unique thing is most of these sectors are very, very labor intensive. Especially, to give you one example, you have seen a huge amount of movement in the electric vehicle sector, right? So this is the money that is planted in the manufacturing sector, and you see huge movement in this zone. So this capital intensive sectors is going to produce a huge amount of employment in our country in the next 5 to 10 years, right? So this is what the government initiative has been pushing manufacturing sector in the Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India thing. Now, if you looked at GDP, GDP has 5 components. First component is consumption, what we consume as individuals in the country. The second is the government expenditure, what the government spends on. The third is the private sector expenditure. And then there is export, and then there is import, right? So in India, we were importing a lot of things as compared to export. So there was a break, so to say, on the GDP, right? So now the government is spending, and it is very important where the government spends, because we have seen one crisis in 2008 when the government spending increased in the wrong things, and we had a big fall in the overall economies across the world. But this time the government is spending on infrastructure, and in infrastructure mainly on roads and bridges and all that. Our minister, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, he had put a target of building roads at a rate of 40 kilometers per day. And we are currently doing that at 38 kilometers per day. So very good pace we are building the roads, and next 5 to 6 years, this is going to only pick up. And when you build, for example, the roads, you will need cement, you will need steel, you will need equipment, all that road making equipment, and then you will need a lot of labor. So this is going to create capex for the, because the capex is done by the government, that will lead to capacity enhancements in the steel and cement manufacturers and the allied industry. It will increase more manpower requirement, and this is how the movement will start. So it is one feeding the another, and then the suddenly the economy is boosted. So this is already there. I have never seen such good roads since my childhood. I am sure you have the similar experience. Near my town, we already see a huge amount of work going on in the Samruddhi Marg. The roads from Nasik to Pune, it is now a very good road. Otherwise, it was a really painful travel from Nasik to Pune. So the Mumbai highway is already 4-lane, and the roads are only getting better from here. So that investment can be seen on ground zero. Now, what happens? It's a cycle that feeds each other. The capex creates the jobs. The capital expenditure will create jobs. More jobs will create more income. If there is more income, there will be people will go out and spend that income, and that will create the consumption. So all these things will ultimately lead to the growth in GDP, and this is what is going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years for sure. Whether you like it or not, whether you understand it or not, whether you want it or not, nobody is going to stop this economy from booming. Get it? So better be a part of this India story or be left out. So that is the message that I got from all this, right? If you see over the last 2-3 years since this pandemic, the corporates have done very unique thing. Out of the profits, the money that they made out of business, what they did is they reduced the corporate debt. So the debt ratio has gone down, and the corporates are ready to take more money from the bank, which is of course the capex that we have been talking. So now their books are ready for more absorbing more debt, right? Now coming to consumption, which is the real crux of the GDP in India. We have 3 kinds of people in the country. We have the Gen X, the older people. Then we have the Gen Y, the people who are born after 1980, that is what they are called, Generation Y, and the Generation Z, which is the young people born after the year 2000, right? And we have this country, which is the youngest population in the world, with the Gen Y and Gen Z category of people, 90 crores strong. So it is the youngest country. We have got the lowest aging, one of the lowest aging populations, and we have got the one of the biggest young populations in this country. Now, what this young population can do and what kind of money we Indians are now having, a few examples of that coming from the consumption. Take the example of a landline phone, for example. Most of us don't have the landline phone, and all those of you who have a landline phone at home, we have not changed that handset maybe for 15-20 years, right? So we have been holding on to that same old handset. But now in the last 5-10 years, if you see, we have, each one of us has one mobile. So in a household of 4 people, they will have 4 mobile handsets. A mobile handset is much more costlier than the landline handset, and we change the mobile every 1 to 2 years, right? So you can see the amount of money we spend and the kind of consumption that the country is doing. So that is the power of Generation Y and Generation Z. To give you a few examples of where we are heading, recently all of you know Mahindra launched their new XUV 700. And if you look at the stats, that is amazing. In 57 minutes, 25,000 cars were booked. And in 3 hours, 50,000 cars were booked. And Mahindra will take at least 6 months to manufacture these cars. So you can see a company, a huge corporate like Mahindra is booked for its business for 6 months. And it took the country just 3 hours to give 6 months of business to such a big corporate. And this is not some sale on Amazon, 50% off and all. This is a car which is priced at 13 lakhs minimum and 24, 25 lakhs on the higher side. And people are buying this kind of cars. Look at another company, right? Ola. Ola Electric. That vehicle is still not on the road. They launched it on 15th August and it took 24 hours to book 86,000 Ola electric vehicles, which people have not yet seen. Can you see? And that vehicle is costing around 1.5 lakh rupees. So you can imagine that this is all through technology and the new generation, all going after this. So this is the size of consumption. All of us use these services like Zomato, Swiggy. 10 years back, there was no such thing. Now, what Zomato and Swiggy have done? First, they have increased the consumption because more people are eating and they are now eating in the comfort of their home. And all those unemployed people who are sitting on the roadside and chit-chatting and wasting away their time are employed by Zomato and Swiggy. All those people are now earning. So that is additional employment generated plus service given to you at your doorstep. So we have all evolved into a much better economy and we are consuming like anything. This is the power of this country. And this is going to only grow. This is only going to bring more business, right? So in the next 5 to 10 years, you will see the consumption going up, the capex going up, the government and the private sector increasing their spending, and all that will add to boosting of this economy. This is how the economy is now can be seen. Now, I will give you an idea of if this is the case and if the boom is already there, you have seen it in the stock market. Nobody had imagined that after the fall in the Sensex in the first wave of COVID, we would be at 60,000. Nobody had imagined. But there we are. This is the speed at which the economy is going. And the Sensex only depicts, it only represents the future of the economy. And it's bright, right? So now where do you invest the money? I will give you a pillar. You can think, you can make your own decision, right? So if the person has money, say he has few rupees to be invested and he goes to the bank and puts it into a FD, how much he will earn? 5%, right? Now what the bank does with this FD, in order to give you 5% interest on the bank FD, the bank has to earn more than 5%, right? So what does the bank do? It gives a loan. It gives a loan to a corporate. It gives loans for housing loan and all that, loans basically. And they will give it at a much higher interest rate, right? So they will maybe lend on an average at 8 to 9% because it also has to make its own profit, run its own business, plus make a payment to the investor at say 5% today's average interest rate. Now, it goes to some company, some corporate, that money, it uses it. Now the corporate who has borrowed the loan from the bank, borrowed the money from the bank, has to return 8 to 9%. In order to do that, the corporate has to earn more. It's a cycle, right? So if the corporate has to pay back 9%, it has to earn 15 to 20% because it has to make its own profit also, right? So if the corporate makes 15%, then it is able to return 9%. And that 9%, the bank takes its share and the investor is given 5%. Now, how much money the corporate made? 15%. And how much the investor got? 5%. Now it is your choice. You invest in a bank FD, get 5%, or invest directly into that business which is making 15%. The choice is yours. It's your life. But the fact remains that we are going towards being the Sone ki Chidiya once again. That is what I feel. I have taken my bets for myself. You take yours. That's all for today. This is Samir Machwe calling off from this episode, Think Abundance, episode number 9 for this week. Bye bye. Take care and have an abundant life.